Everybody, we are live. Hopefully, the audio is a little bit better than before. Could be going now. Up to snuff. Everybody, we are both recording and we are streaming the next part of Tech Talks Battletech. Are you seeing a screen there that you shouldn't be seeing? I'll be setting it up, sending out the alerts to everybody so they know what is what. Some of the goodness. There you go. For those who don't know, I'm going to be skipping the intermission. I will be making a stream and a video of the intermission, which is they're going to be talking about the documentary, the Traveler movie that they're working on. So that's the thing that they're doing. But I want to do a little promo about that so people know about it, probably as a short rather than as a reaction, because I should let them talk about the movie they're working on. It should be out in 2027. I thought it was going to be out in 2026, but in fact, it's going to be out in 2027. So, without much further ado, let's go back to Tech Talks Battletech, The Black Knight, Part 2. Chapter 5, The Long, Slow Fall from Grace.
In the aftermath of the Reunification War, the SLDF was keen to forget the exact and painful details of what had gone right and what had gone wrong, and
that is so typical.
Focused on rebuilding, burying the past as appropriate. As such, battle-tested solutions like the Black Knight stand as stoic examples of giving the right tools to the right people, and then thereafter discarding them all once the blood dried. Tragically, without further invested trust and self-examination of these systemic failures, war planners considered the problem solved as,
of course
after all,
they did.
They had won. By then considered proven and thus good enough for now by military experts, the Black Knight itself wouldn't be revisited for any major upgrades until shortly before the next great cycle of woe and slaughter. This marks a pattern noticed by many in the Black Knight community, with some superstitious mech warriors noting that every major upgrade, model update, or field refit of the Black Knight as a platform immediately thereafter coincide with horrific conflict. In short, if you suddenly have to dig up and rebuild all of your ancient command platforms because they actually work, chances are you're going to war.
20% of your population.
The sheer lethality of their typical job requirements. By this time, the Black Knight had a following, if not a rather sizable community of enthusiasts, and the royal version would be the culmination of their design input. The BL6B KNT is the SLDF Royal variant, and would enter service a little less than 2 decades before Stefan Amaris would commit perhaps the worst unboxing in history, and thereafter tear the Star League apart. Accordingly, the 2751 Royal variant of the chassis is the very last SLDF model, which upgrades its heat sinks to double varieties, netting enormous gains in cooling capacity. The saved weight was then used to upgrade the PPC to an ERPPC for additional range potential. As well, they replaced the twin large lasers with large pulse lasers for added accuracy. Unfortunately, this specific redesign would not last long, as you can add it to the list of things Amaris is responsible for ruining, and beginning a period of woe for Kong Interstellar. After the uprising, civil war, exodus, and into the heart of darkness that is the First Succession War, Kong Interstellar was unable to produce Black Knights in the same quantity or quality that they used to, as their main factory at the Connaught complex was severely damaged in 2802. This raid was significant, as the damage to the planet was sufficient to effectively lower its tech standard, and with bombed out and thus greatly reduced manufacturing facilities, Kong Interstellar desperately attempted to make do. They salvaged what they could
of the rubble liquidation and Black Knight strapped
and worked as a repair, service, and overhaul facility for their customers. Any spare industrial capacity was dedicated to parts fabrication in support of their best product. They were that customer-driven.
Okay, I'm gonna make a stop here. Like I said, usually in my reactions I don't stop to to update, but in this case, this is a wonderful animation that shows the destruction that happened during the Succession War. Essentially, for those who are not in the know, in the setting, first part we covered the rise of the Star League, the foundation of the Star League. Then there was a little bit of a civil war that killed many millions of people with giant robots and nuclear weapons and other stuff. And then there were the Succession Wars because while the Star League fell, the power blocks that are called the Great Houses decided, no, we are going to try to rule the inner sphere. And they got into a tizzy that lasted totally about 350 years, give or take. I think more like 300 years. And the thing is that they also had very powerful weapons, including nukes. And every time they went to attack someplace, they just, well, nuke the place. And the technology base of many planets, not all planets, fell significantly. So by the time of the fourth Succession War, which is kind of like the last of the Succession Wars, well, there's more conflicts called Battletech for a reason. It isn't that there was a complete collapse of technology in the inner sphere, but a lot of the higher end stuff wasn't there anymore. And so think of it as a downgrade. Think like you have today, you have, your stealth fighters and your AI driven drones, attack drones, stuff like that. And then there's a major war, and we go back, say, to the turn of the century, 21st century. You have advanced systems and advanced tanks, but then, you don't have as much stuff. Maybe you have another war, knocks you back to, say, 1991, the Gulf War. Okay, we certainly have advanced stuff. We have tanks, we have fighter planes, we have some stealth technology, guided weapon systems, but most of our bombs are dumb. And then you have another war, and it knocks you down to, say, 1980, where you have some guided weapons, but most of the stuff is definitely dumb bombs, rockets, napalm, fighter planes, no stealth to speak of, except maybe some experimental stuff. That's how it goes. It isn't so much, there was a war and then we're back to, say, 1800, pre-industrial era, although some planets, many a planet, did suffer that. But you have that degradation, and that's, I think, what Tex is going to be talking about in the future.
For a time, this made Kong Interstellar responsible for maintaining the bulk of the Black Knights in existence, offering aftermarket upgrade support, even after being bombed into near Stone Age conditions. Their faithful support further earned the trust and loyalty of an increasingly devoted pilot corps, examples of which we'll discuss later. For a short window during those dark years of absolute apocalyptic mayhem, Kong Interstellar took what resources they had, and then managed to produce a downgraded variant of the Black Knight, the BL-7 KNT, because even without the fancy endosteel, the machine is still capable of fulfilling its intended role, though now with less armor. This was an austere machine for an austere age, and I will say that it's certainly not a bad mech, but it does mark the downfall of Kong Interstellar, or what the Black Knight pilots call the Dark Ages. Produced in dire hardship, these simpler Black Knights were built until 2820, when the Capellans again bombed the factory, fatally downgrading the diminished facilities of Kong Interstellar, who, after this point, could only repair and make parts for their former products. The next major historical development of the Black Knight was a field modification made in the Free Worlds League.
Explains
With the scarcity of PPCs, the Black Knights operated by the Free Worlds League were typically re-equipped with large lasers.
Of course.
Extra space available due to this
They're known for
then filled with
putting lasers and everything, right?
Accordingly, this field upgrade made from
product.
Supply chain austerity is rather incredibly popular, as it is unsophisticated and yet absolutely murders targets.
Clan busting. Here comes the clan invasion.
4 succession wars later, and through every other conflict in between, it seemed that the Black Knight may have been at long last a casualty of the cycles of ruin that had marked the collapse of civilization. However long suffering, the Black Knight's brightest moment had not yet arrived, not until Kerensky's descendants returned. Prior to Tukid and Twycross, the clan invasion had gone very well for the invaders, facing a turning point when the Inner Sphere learned how to properly escalate to overmatch clan capabilities. This was then punctuated by the achievement of a single pilot who headshot their leader, which drove the clans all the way back to the homeworld to elect a new one. This
I wonder if Tex will eventually cover
in time to think.
The invasion of the capital world of the Draconis Combine. That's also a very interesting battle.
And thereafter offer insight into how things could have gone differently in the days thereafter. Dissenting strategists will offer that the clans could have potentially countered this change of fortune by adopting new ways, and potentially re-examining their pace of advance to ensure slow but steady gains. Others will suggest different clans employed to different tasks during the invasion may have brought more favorable outcomes. A few naval proponents have offered that the clan's major error was the bidding away of warships and thus strong power projection as an honor-mandated response by Smoke Jaguar's casual war crimes. I feel, however, that the clan's greatest mistake was when they angered the wrong group of people.
The tenor you're patrolling is not available at present.
For while very careful in how they speak, the clans let slip that their
this looks like something out of the MechWarrior games,
territory, but Terra itself,
which I like a lot, by the way. The latest MechWarrior
didn't like that very much.
Games,
and so shortly thereafter, your occasionally scary Inner Sphere telecoms provider announced they had this, and then invited the invaders to a world in order to settle the issue of ownership very firmly. Blake's fan club made thorough preparations to turn the world into a shooting gallery, one which would kill the best the clans brought, and in great number. So if all else failed, they could by their sacrifice at least blunt the invasion by means of attrition. To tip the scales in their favor, Comstar opened their vast arsenals and brought their best technicians together to forge a further edge in order to claim victory. They would call this the Clan Buster Project, and through it, a Black Knight would once again be forged on the eve of war to serve as needed. The BL-9-K&T was one product of the hurried Clan Buster Project. This crash program didn't necessarily make the best design choices for all various evaluated chassis involved. But in the case of the Black Knight, Comstar did an amazing job. Comstar began its overhaul by installing a 300XL engine, freeing up 9.5 tons of room for the fun stuff. They then reduced the number of heat sinks to 15, but made them double variants to more
intended purpose. Enhanced Royal Black Knight
added an extra
hates
half
clanners.
Of armor. It is of note, however, that these Clan Buster variants weren't entirely new machines. These were hastily upgraded, ancient BL6s from the stockpile, but Comstar has some wonderful engineers, and by their madness combined, they created a monster that has one ERPPC, 2 large lasers, 1 large pulse laser, 4 medium pulse lasers, and a goddamn hatchet to teach clanners that when Comstar rings, best not pick up. And on that world, it served well, allowing Comstar to hold ground.
Also, the music
and then
is
sell it
just
dearly, while most firmly
I hope I don't get
the
music doesn't have to work around the music.
Crazy
the music
is
is pretty good.
Die to prove a point. As such, the Black Knight found a new generation of adherents, freshly baptized by the bloodbath of Tukid, and just in time for the lead up to the FedCom Civil War, we finally received an update to the platform that is almost full circle back to the Royal Regiment 6B. The BL-12-K&T has 16 double heat sinks while keeping the Endosteel and ERPPC found on the Royal variant, but it removes the Beagle active probe. Designers upgraded the 4 medium lasers to the extended range models, and then tied everything into a targeting computer for pinpoint accuracy at all ranges. This allows a frontline commander to pinpoint a problem, and then remove it personally. As design philosophy goes, it is interesting to note that the legend of the Black Knight is not solely an Inner Sphere phenomenon. There are indeed certain cultures which hold the olden days of the Star League in incredibly high reverence, looking to their works as the apex of human civilization. The clans hold preserved designs of the Star League era in a certain cultural regard, and in many cases act to improve upon them as a near-sacred idealized variation of what might have been. These simulacrum of Star League designs serve in many ways as the ultimate evolution of the original platform. And that's where we have the sudden introduction of Clan Coyote's space magic. The Spirit Walker is a rare, clanner descendant of the Black Knight that's amazingly an Omnimech. This machine, much like the Black Knight itself, arrived just in time as the result of an emergency engineering program.
When they talk about Omnimechs and the clans, Clan Coyote, which is one of the many clans, the idea is that there are parts of the mech you can swap in and out, right? Oh, hey, you have a missile launcher here. Okay, you can put, instead of putting a rocket, you can put a PPC or something like that, making them very flexible, right? And so the idea is you can swap in and out for different mission profiles. Much easier than just rebuilding the mech every single time. I mean, you can always swap weapons in Battletech, but that's kind of, and systems, but really the Omnimech is taking that idea to its ultimate evolution. It's built from the get-go to be swappable. And of course, it's clan tech, which means it's advanced, it has better armor, runs a little faster, better cooling with clan tech, double heat sinks. I mean, they're more expensive because it's clan tech, but if you want the best, usually clan tech is the way to go. Unless you can engineer something by yourself that somehow can make it better.
While Clan Coyote indeed had fought hard to control Omni technology for a decade, exclusivity to the technology was lost when the Jade Falcons gained the technology through trial of possession. Soon after, proliferation of Omnimech technology exploded through the clans, each vying for access to new and powerful designs. And so Clan Coyote aimed for mass production. The Spirit Walker was produced with a standard chassis, and it continued the tradition of using the workhorse of mech power plants, the 300 rated core, giving it the same movement and profile as its progenitor. The machine came standard with a single ER small laser located in the head, and a spacious 29 tons of open pod space for all of your mission needs. The Clan Coyote typical model uses 16 double heat sinks and a quartet of ER large lasers reinforced by 4 medium pulse lasers. The active probe is just the cherry on top. It is a Black Knight in all but name, and perhaps it offers the greatest iteration of the original concept. From Terra to the Clan Worlds, the Black Knight and its derivatives have certainly made their mark on history. But to fully understand the Black Knight as an enduring part of our culture, we must look at those who piloted them to glory.
Nightlife. Famous pilots. Chapter 7.
General Ethan Moreau is more or less what you'd expect of a career Black Knight pilot. Born in the Free Worlds League, he joined the Star League Defense Forces, and by the time he graduated from the Star League's elite gunslinger program, he was already considered one of the finest students they had ever trained. By the end of the Americivil War, he held the rank of general, commanding the elite 81st Battle Mech Division. He was well respected by his men, leading them from the front and never once asking others to do what he would not do personally. He joined the Exodus, fought in the rebellion afterward, and refused to join the second one, as perhaps he saw Nicholas Kerensky was all jar and no marbles. While Nicholas was deeply hurt by this, Moreau wrote the Ilkhan a letter explaining he was tired of running away. Thus, he would not leave the world of Babylon to run away again. He instead said that he'd keep the SLDF light alive during those dark years, saving who he could, and so he tried. Moreau fought with what little he had, and against the odds, he actually survived, though he was not unchanged by this experience. As clanner history tells us, with his forces eventually defeated, he was left wandering the desert until he was stung multiple times by Babylonian Goliath scorpions. Among other properties of their venom, to include paralysis and death, is the extreme hallucinogenic effect, which may cause one to go mad. And yet, Mr. Moreau, sometime later, emerged from the wilderness, screaming about needing to see the Ilkhan, with a crazed look in his eyes. Regardless of ending things on bad terms, Moreau apologized and promised
being
to
drugged
serve.
out of your mind
This would form
is
the foundation of the clan tradition of Surukai, which allows a clan member to admit their mistake and beg forgiveness with zero loss of honor. Moreau was very useful even in advanced age, as he was one of the last survivors at this point in history of the SLDF Gunslinger program, and thus, he became one of the first warriors of the clans. He would later become an instructor for Clan Goliath Scorpion, his skills so very necessary that he was adopted into that clan for that purpose alone. Through this, Moreau became the basis for the clanner ritual of adoption, which is still observed today. His writings form the basis of many large parts of the remembrance.
It seems
as it relates
interesting
to the Pentagon
because
Civil War,
in clan
and his voice is
culture,
one of the few
if you
which
get,
survives
you
of
should
that
die
time
on the battlefield.
with any sense of lasting
So,
credibility.
in essence, you die young.
In 2 years of tireless service and writing, and
This
thus
guy was old as
advancing the clan
balls, and
archival
yet he
sciences,
was the founder of a lot
he
of the
became
stuff.
the very first lore master of Clan Goliath Scorpion. And when the time came, Mr. Moreau died the way his vision required. When locked in battle and unable to commit further, he asked his opponents for Hegira. He wished an honorable withdrawal, fully admitting his defeat, to save his forces. As clanner custom required, Moreau died that day, honor intact,
Highlander.
but his legacy is another matter. Unlike most of the clans, he was not obsessed with a legacy written in blood, or even much glory on the battlefield. He saw no use in venerating dead states, but more remembering what they once stood for. Thus, he did not pass on his ambition. Instead, he gave his people something greater. He gave them his wisdom, and that, to me, is a Black Knight pilot to the very core.
Badass. I mean, you can say a lot about the clans, but they can be pretty badass.
After serving for a decade with the Merrick Militia as a Black Knight pilot, Colonel Morden Greenberg left the Free Worlds League military and decided on a new career. After so much time at war, he decided he'd make a hell of a combat correspondent. While the profession has known many noble entries over the years, Greenberg was special. He worked for the Tharkat Broadcasting Company, and the conflict to be covered was the Third Succession War. His presence during that conflict established him as a household name. But Greenberg wasn't content to just show a war, because he was a Black Knight pilot, and so naturally he wanted to participate. Greenberg approached his producer and made a pitch, which went something like this. What if you created a live-action documentary series covering a mercenary's life? What if you invited your camera crew into the mercenary bars and clubs and places where the grim reality of war is discussed without censorship? What if you could put a combat camera dead center in the biggest war of the age and show the average person what war was really like? The idea was to take funding from the Tharkat Broadcasting Company and then fund the rebuilding of a bad luck mercenary unit, Brownlee's Barracudas, with new casting, new money, new mechs, and Greenberg in command by contract requirement. You have Greenberg's Godzillas, which, as a show, sits somewhere between reality television
like,
and the heart of
that's
darkness.
a rumble scene. That's a second scene in the
Naturally,
bad guy going like,
Greenberg's Godzillas was a runaway success as a Holovid
insane.
production, which generated positive ratings until it was finally canned on the eve of the Fourth Succession War. However, this is where the show goes off script, as after their cancellation,
Oh, man,
the
the
cast was not
animations.
interested in going back to anything else, as trust me, showbiz as a profession is frequently more miserable and quite likely less moral than fighting a war for money. So once they were fired by Tharkat, they decided to join the war which had ended their production. During Operation Guerrero, they rolled footage which would make them wildly famous, which earned them a place in the strategic deck for Operation Bulldog, such as the life of a combat cameraman, and in any other mech, quite likely impossible. Wilbur Fruse was another graduate of the Gunslinger program, but he was not like Ethan Moreau. Moreau believed he was there to serve the state. Wilbur Fruse, however, believed he was a cowboy. Fruse was a member of the 124th Royal Heavy Assault Regiment, of which he was also their dueling champion, a post he held for 7 straight years. However great his record was, Fruse was an eccentric, even by the odd standards
Operation
of the
Bull by the Horns.
multi-polity SLDF.
Or
Whereas some mech warriors steeped themselves in the
Johnny
work of
hears you,
Sun
Johnny
Tzu
don't care.
or Miyamoto Musashi, Wilbur Fruse felt that his cultural roots were from the 19th century Wild West, as depicted in fable, film, and story. Mr. Fruse believed that reading everything about gunslingers as a graduate of the Gunslinger program would allow him to master his career from the seat of his Black Knight. This steeping of cultural essence manifested in many ways. He stopped wearing his SLDF uniform after a certain point and just started
how the hell you fit a pony
as a cowboy.
in the cockpit?
With a 19-0-0 dueling record in single combat, nobody really pressed the point. They really couldn't. As strange as Wilbur was, he could back it up with phenomenal skill. However, by 2718, the 7 years of endless dueling and pretending to be a cowboy had broken the fragile bulwark of his commanding officer's sanity, and they sent him back home to Terra for what is politely called rest. Keep in mind that just because someone dresses like a lunatic doesn't mean their danger to you is any less real. And in our profession, crazy works fine more often than not. And speaking of crazy, a Black Knight pilot wrote more or less the goddamn book on it.
Oh, here we go.
Elizabeth Hazen was from Terra and had a long road of adventure. From Alexandria, Virginia on the continent of North America, she joined the military once passing legal age. By 25 years old, she was the commanding officer of a company in the goddamn Black Watch. She survived the Amaris coup. She survived the...
Okay, to understand who the Black Watch is, it's the most elite of the elite in the Star League Defense Forces, SLDF. Because their job was to protect the Camerons, essentially the monarchs of and leaders of Terra, by extension, the Star League. Story gets very dark with that one, but that's a stream and video for another day.
Occupation. She survived the Civil War and never stopped fighting. She fought against Amaris until Kerensky showed up in 2779. She and the Black Watch survivors served as Kerensky's protectors and bodyguards through the final campaigns to put Amaris into a dumpster. As such, she was the last person ever awarded the Star League Medal of Honor. Afterwards, she joined the Exodus, and when the Prince Eugen mutinied, she sorted it out. When the Exodus Civil War erupted, she jumped in again. During the De Chevalier massacre, she lost her mech and one of her last remaining friends. Bloodied but unbeaten, she emerged from her destroyed machine to continue the fight with a sword in close combat against armed insurgent forces. She then won that battle as well. In fact, she beat them so hard that the Remembrance gives her passage 8 verse 36 for that throwdown alone. Yes, she was impressive beyond any measure of the word. And as one of the 4 founders of Clan Jade Falcon, she set the standards of brutal expectations and the absolute requirements of service, which has marked them ever since. She did most of this from the cockpit of her Black Knight, watching and waiting until required. And then when the moment came, leading by furious example at point blank range.
The katana is part of the clan's symbol because of it.
The Black Knight is not a mere machine. It is, in fact, an institution. It is the cornerstone of modern mech command and control, and has been ever since the day it arrived. And on the eve of every great war, regardless of the march of time, military planners know how to reach for what works. And the Black Knight always has. As such, it is a machine for the chosen few. It is a mech designed for those who endeavor to command by example from the front, standing shoulder to shoulder with their brothers and sisters in arms, gladly awaiting the challenges ahead. The Black Knight is a gift from the days of old, where battlefield commanders were expected to take the very same chances, if not fantastically greater ones, in order to effectively lead their forces to victory, and as necessary, suffer alongside them through the steadfast dedication of a bizarre company and legions of loyal pilots. The Black Knight has outlasted every problem put before it. It was the right tool to put the boot to the periphery. It was the right tool to tell Amaris no. It was the right tool to remind the clanners, mere months after the Falcon Guard had won their best in show for blending into terrain, that the buck stops here, and the phone company has your number. It is the eternally correct choice for line officers and the NCOs who mind them, and forever enhanced but never quite changed. Centuries later, the Black Knight still loyally occupies the same place it always has, as a tireless machine for the overworked and underappreciated folks who keep a military actually running. Through its battlefield excellence, it is no wonder that its pilot corps are some of the finest example of mech warriors in history, frequently appearing as needed like mythical heroes to win the day, the first boots on the ground, and the last to leave once the work is done. They are a lead by example and die as needed mech corps that, as a culture among mech warriors, has earned the utmost respect. It is they who will die trying. It is they who will win or lose this war or the next, and they frequently know it, for it haunts their dreams and defines their entire career. Beat but never beaten, diminished but never destroyed. The Black Knight is a symbol of the resilience and fighting spirit of those who fight and die to see the mission done. As such, the history, mythos, and legend of the Black Knight, I feel, is a good reminder that while there are indeed a great many who may aim to lead, only few may command. And if entrusted with the right tools at the right time, they can make all the difference in the world.
These animations are just so great. Wow.
Thank you. Class dismissed.
Well, that was the shorter, but certainly second part of this video. Please, I should have said this in the beginning, but please go to the original and watch it in its totality. I did skip over a couple of things, mostly because YouTube gets a little, they get a bit nervous when you do a couple of things. But also, they have a great charity going. Last time I checked,
Hello, is this thing on? Okay, Hans here, and I come to you on behalf of the production team behind Battletech to bring you a short message. Please excuse the mess as I had to break the fourth wall to do so. I promise to put it back on as soon as this is done.
Hello. We somehow keep making these grand shitposts and you keep supporting us. We really didn't think we'd ever make it this far, but thanks to you, we can continue to do our best possible shitpost, even if it takes us until the 11th hour. Why? Because making movies is hella fun for us, and because big robots are fucking cool.
This is an annual reminder that there are actual people behind this curtain. There's a small army of artists, musicians, voice actors, research assistants, and all manner of strays that have joined forces to make this attempt, and we're committed to keeping it that way as long as possible. Tex believes in true craftsmanship, and so do we. That's why these episodes take such an absurd amount of time and resources to produce, but with your support, we can continue to endure and evolve.
So, if you guys like the idea of a deeply autistic man leading a bunch of us internet weirdos on some sort of wild crusade to make high-effort documentaries on very specific, odd subjects that he's passionate about, please consider donating to the Patreon.
And look, if you decide your money is better spent elsewhere, please know that we always have a fundraiser running alongside these productions to support real-world causes. This is a huge part of why we do this, and honestly, a donation to a good cause is just as welcome as one for the show.
We are going to take a short break after this, but soon enough, we will go again. For allowing us to do these mad things and regularly encouraging us to always be our best, I am incredibly humbled and grateful. You guys make me feel like I have the best fan base in the entire goddamn world. So, from the bottom of my heart, thank you very much. We will return. Until then, keep your feet on the ground and keep moving forward. I'll see you at the next horizon.
Man, brother.
Okay, everyone, the wall is going back up in 3, 2, 1, go.
And again, I'm muting it because, YouTube gets nervous. Oh, what the? Okay, this is a short, I don't know. It has probably music. I don't think I'll be able to. I'm going to leave it here. So, yeah, I'm going to stop it. Again, watch the original video. It has all that you need to watch, all the things. Support the original content creator, in this case, Tex, and the crew over the Black Pants Legion. And if you want to support me, of course, you can go to all the places that I'm at, Twitch, YouTube, and Patreon, and more, including also I'm running games over at Let's Start Gaming. So you want a Dungeons and Dragons game or a Traveler game, I can run that one for you. We just have to set up the schedule, see what happens. But yeah, I'm doing that. So please support the channel, their channel. And if you want to throw something at me, hey, I'm not going to say no, but, priorities. And if that is too much either way, like they mentioned, there is a charity. They're raising money for cancer research, especially childhood leukemia. So last time I checked was over $65,000. Probably right now at $70,000 plus. So go check the original. And thank you for stopping by. See you when I see you. Bye bye, everybody.